The rest stop that only appears when you're lost. The worst part wasn't finding a rest stop. That didn't exist. The worst part was realizing I had been the one putting it there. This happened last November while I was driving home from my mother's house. She lives about 6 hours north of me, and I had made that drive enough times to know every gas station, every speed trap, and every dead zone where the radio dissolved into static. I left later than I should have. By midnight, the highway was almost completely empty. There were no streetlights, no houses, just black trees on both sides of the road and reflective lane markers appearing one by one beneath my headlights. I remember checking the dashboard clock, 12:47 a.m. A few minutes later, I checked it again, 12:47. I assumed the clock had frozen. Then the final digit changed. It went from 7 to 6, 12:46. I stared at it long enough for my tires to cross onto the rumble strip. I corrected the wheel and told myself it was an electrical problem. My car was old. The dashboard lights flickered sometimes when it rained. A backwards clock wasn't impossible. At least, that was what I decided. Then I passed the same road sign twice. Mile 118. The first time, someone had placed a small bouquet of white flowers beneath it. The second time, the flowers were lying in the middle of the road. I slowed down. There had been no exit, no turn. I had been driving straight for at least 10 minutes. I reached for my phone, but the navigation screen showed nothing except a grey grid. No road, no location marker, not even the usual searching for GPS message. Just a blank square with one thin black line running vertically down the center. Then my radio turned on by itself. The speakers hissed for several seconds. Underneath the interference, I heard a man breathing, slowly, like he was standing very close to a microphone. Then he said, "You missed it again." The radio clicked off. I nearly stopped the car. Instead, I accelerated. That was when I saw the rest stop. It appeared beyond the next bend, glowing beneath a row of yellow lights. There was no highway sign announcing it, no exit lane. The parking lot simply opened on the right side of the road, as though the asphalt had widened around it. The building looked old, not abandoned, just outdated. Flat roof, brown brick, long rectangular windows. It reminded me of the rest stops my parents used to take me to when I was a child. The ones with vending machines, faded travel brochures, and bathrooms that smelled like bleach. There were 5 cars in the parking lot. Every one of them was the same color as mine, dark blue. I should have kept driving, I know that. But I was exhausted, my phone had stopped working, and the fuel gauge was dropping much faster than it should have. So I pulled in. The moment my tires crossed into the parking lot, the highway noise vanished. It didn't fade, it vanished. I could no longer hear the engine, the wind, or even the gravel under my tires. The only sound was the clicking of my turn signal, except I hadn't turned it on. I parked beneath one of the lights. The 4 other blue cars were empty. Their doors were unlocked. Their headlights were on. All 4 dashboard clocks displayed the same time, 12:39. Mine now did too. Inside the building, the air was warm and smelled like wet carpet. The walls were covered with framed photographs of highways at night. No people, no landmarks, just empty roads disappearing into darkness. There was a vending machine against the far wall, a drinking fountain, 2 restroom doors, and a man standing beside a rack of travel brochures. At first, I thought he was reading one. Then I noticed he wasn't moving normally. He lifted his right hand, touched the brochure rack, lowered his hand, and repeated the movement. Again, and again, exactly the same each time. A 2-second loop. "Sir," I called. He didn't react. He lifted his hand, touched the rack, lowered it, repeated. I approached him carefully. He looked to be in his 40s. Grey jacket, mud on his shoes, a wedding ring. His eyes were open, but he wasn't blinking. When I moved into his line of sight, his pupils followed me. The rest of his body continued looping. Hand up, touch, hand down. I stepped back. That was when the vending machine dropped a can. I hadn't inserted any money. The can was completely white. No logo. No ingredients. No pull tab. Written on its side in black marker were the words, "You left the door open." I dropped it. The man beside the brochure rack stopped moving. His hand remained suspended in the air. His eyes turned toward me. "You weren't supposed to come inside," he said. His voice was the same voice I had heard on the radio. I asked him what this place was. He looked past me toward the front entrance. "You know what it is? I've never been here before." His face tightened. Then his body snapped back into motion. Hand up. Touch. Hand down. I walked toward the bathrooms. I didn't actually need to use one. I just wanted to get away from him and find another exit. The men's room was empty. 4 sinks. 4 stalls. A long mirror above the counter. Everything looked normal except for my reflection. It was delayed. When I raised my hand, the reflection waited nearly a full second before copying me. I lowered it. The reflection kept its hand raised. I froze. It stared at me. Then it placed one finger against its lips. I turned away from the mirror. Behind me, one of the stall doors creaked open. Inside was a narrow staircase leading downward. That should have been impossible. The building was 1 story tall, and I hadn't seen any basement windows outside. But the stairs continued into darkness. On the wall beside them, someone had scratched a date into the paint. November 17th, 1998. I knew that date. It was the night my father died. I was 6 years old when it happened. My parents and I had been driving home from my grandmother's house during a storm. My father stopped at a rest area because I needed to use the bathroom. That was the version my mother told me. She said a truck lost control on the wet road and hit him in the parking lot. I remembered almost nothing about it. Only yellow lights, wet pavement, my mother screaming, and a door slowly closing in front of me. At the bottom of the stairs, a dim red light flickered. I should have gone back to my car. Instead, I went down. The staircase ended in a hallway covered with dark green wallpaper. It looked exactly like the hallway in my childhood home. At the end was the door to my old bedroom, except it was too narrow. Not by much, maybe 2 inches, but I could tell. I had spent years in that room. I knew its proportions the way you know the shape of your own face. The doorknob turned before I touched it. Inside, everything was exactly as I remembered. My wooden bed, my toy box, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. A small television sat on the dresser, playing a grainy home video. The footage showed the same highway rest stop. The date in the corner read November 17th, 1998. My father stood near our car, arguing with someone outside the frame. My mother waited in the passenger seat. Then 6-year-old me appeared at the entrance to the building. I was holding the door open. Not for my parents. For something inside. The video distorted. But for one frame I saw a tall, black shape standing behind me. It had no face. Its body bent sideways, as if it didn't understand which direction gravity was supposed to pull it. My father saw it. He ran toward me. The shape moved through the open doorway. Every light in the parking lot went dark. When the image returned, my father was lying on the pavement. There was no truck, no other vehicle. Nothing had hit him. He had simply been folded backward in the middle of the parking lot. I stepped away from the television. "That isn't what happened," I said. The video rewound by itself. This time, the footage began earlier. It showed me inside the rest stop, standing beside the vending machine. 6-year-old me was speaking to someone who wasn't visible. The audio was damaged, but I could hear my own voice. "What's your name?" Static covered the response. Then I repeated what I had heard. "Okay, I'll say it so you can come out." The television screen went black. Behind me, a child whispered the name. "I won't repeat it. I can't." The sound was wrong. It wasn't a word made for a human mouth. It felt like hearing a recording played backward and forward at the same time. But the moment I heard it, I remembered everything. I had found the door behind the bathroom stall when I was 6. At the bottom of the stairs, I met something in my bedroom. It told me it was trapped. It said it could not leave unless someone outside remembered its name. So I repeated it. Then I held the front door open. My father didn't die trying to save me from a truck. He died trying to close the door before the thing reached the highway. My mother changed the story because I wouldn't stop saying the name. 4 weeks after the funeral, I whispered it in my sleep. Eventually, I forgot. And when I forgot, the rest stop disappeared. The bedroom door opened behind me. The man in the grey jackets stood in the hallway. He was no longer repeating his movement. Every time you remember, he said, the place comes back. I asked him who he was. He looked down at his wedding ring. I stopped here 9 years ago. His voice trembled. My wife saw the lights. I told her to keep driving, but she needed the bathroom. He glanced toward the staircase. She came back different. What happened to her? She brought the rest stop home. He pointed at the television. The screen now showed my apartment. The camera angle appeared to be from the ceiling of my bedroom. I saw my bed, my desk, and the open closet door. A shadow was standing inside the closet. It moved in the same 2-second loop as the man upstairs. Lean forward. Tilt its head. Step back. Repeat. What does it want? I asked. The man looked at me with something close to pity. It doesn't want anything. It spreads. The television changed again. Now it showed dozens of roads. Different states. Different countries. Different years. On each road, the same yellow lights appeared in the darkness. The same building. The same parking lot. The same open door. It needs someone to remember the entrance. The man continued. Someone to carry it from place to place. I understood then. I hadn't accidentally found the rest stop. I had rebuilt it by remembering my father's death. The clock moving backward. The repeated road sign. The radio voice, those weren't warnings. They were symptoms. The rest stop was using my memory to construct itself around me. And now that I remembered its name, it no longer needed this highway. It could follow me anywhere. The lights in the bedroom went out. In the darkness, something unfolded beside me. Its joints cracked one after another. A hand touched the back of my neck. When the light returned, I was standing in the parking lot beside my car. The rest stop was gone. There was nothing around me except an empty shoulder and dark trees. My phone worked again. The map showed that I was nearly 80 miles away from mile 118. I drove home without stopping. For the first few days, I convinced myself it had been exhaustion, a hallucination caused by stress and lack of sleep. Then my apartment began getting smaller. At first, it was almost impossible to notice. The hallway seemed slightly narrower. The kitchen ceiling felt lower. My bedroom door started scraping against the frame. I measured everything. Every room was exactly 2 inches smaller than the measurements listed in my lease. Then the looping started. My neighbor began walking past my door every night at 12:39. Always the same movement. 3 footsteps. A cough. 3 footsteps. A cough. One night, I looked through the peephole. He wasn't walking down the hallway. He was taking the same 3 steps over and over without moving forward. Last week, the vending machine in my office dropped a white can. Written on the side were 4 words. The door is still open. I don't drive at night anymore. I avoid rest stops, empty hallways, and mirrors whenever the clocks show 12:39. But it doesn't matter. The place isn't waiting on the highway now. It's inside my memories. Sometimes I wake up and my bedroom is 2 inches smaller. Sometimes I hear wet footsteps crossing the carpet, even though I live alone. And sometimes, just before I fall asleep, I see myself standing in the corner. Not a shadow. Not a reflection. Me. Repeating the same 2-second movement. Raising one hand. Touching the wall. Lowering it. Again. And again. I used to think the rest stop appeared only when people were lost. I was wrong. It appears when I remember it. And now that I've told you this story, you know where the entrance is to.